I really feel for him. I think everybody, whether you play on the Celtics or play on the Cavs, I mean, nobody wants to see that.
My thoughts and prayers go out to Gordon. It was a pretty gruesome injury if anybody was watching, and I hope for a speedy and healthy recovery for Gordon.
Any injury is tough, especially when it's one of your own teammates. Got to just pick ourselves up and get on with continuing as best we can with the season until he's back with us.
And hopefully he does come back. Horrific, gruesome, just some of the adjectives used to describe Gordon Hayward's injury. Just 5 minutes and 15 seconds into his Boston Celtics career. We're going to talk with noted orthopedist Armin Tirani in just a few moments about more of the injury. But let's start with our very own Robin Lundberg and Rohan Nadkarni joining us from the crossover. And just, Rohan, what a terrible way for the season that we were all so excited about to start. I mean, I think it showed in the rest of the first half with the Celtics and the Cavaliers just seemed tentative, and I can understand why.
Yeah, when you see an injury like that, I mean, it just zaps the energy out of the building, out of the season, and, kind of someone just popped the balloon there 5 minutes. Watching the game, you're even watching it, and every time someone jumps, you get a little bit nervous. I mean, you could see guys, there was one play, LeBron's on the fast break, you think he's going to dunk it, just softly lays it in. It was just really uncomfortable. I think one thing we ought to keep in mind that Gordon Hayward's going to come back. He's going to be on the court again. We're going to get to see him play basketball again. All things considered, it's not the end of the world for the Celtics, but it's just such a shame after this incredible summer we've had and then, the night this was supposed to be the first game to see something like that happen was just awful.
Obviously terrible for Hayward and everyone in agreement hoping he gets back out there. The sad thing for Celtics fans is how good they looked at the beginning of that game with that opening five. The spinning it, silver lining-wise is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, very impressive to me. Marcus Smart is going to have to be the guy that steps up. Do you agree with that to fill Hayward's spot?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Smart is also, the logical choice to kind of slide into the starting lineup. He can play shooting guard. I thought Smart gave them some good minutes last night. I believe he ended up in the minus, shot 5 of 16. Having said that, he kind of provided a spark there in the third quarter that got them going a little bit, that got the team back in the game. We touched on this before the season, but the Celtics lost so many role players, guys like Avery, Bradley, Jay Crowder, guys who can kind of lift you up. Smart gives that to them, right? He's still kind of the emotional center of that team, someone who can provide an energy boost when he's in the game. So I'm with Robin on this one. I do think, Marcus's kind of play is going to be maybe a bellwether for the Celtics' success.
This is something that we're seeing on Facebook Live, and I can't help but just be kind of annoyed by this. I'm sorry. We love your comments, but when someone says LeBron hooked his arm, I don't think there was anything intentional about this.
That's a play that happens a billion times. Gordon Hayward's probably run it so many times, countless times in practice or in a game. It just happens. It's incidental contact. You guys got going up. It's not like LeBron undercut him or anything like that. Yeah, this isn't even in the realm of a dirty play or anything like that. It just happens sometimes.
Yeah, we're hoping he's going to get well soon. Meanwhile, we should talk about the Cavaliers a little bit. We talked about the Celtics, a lot of new faces on their team as well. You look at Jay Crowder, 11 points, 5 rebounds, shot just 3 for 10. Derrick Rose, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 5 for 14. Jeff Green, 6 points in 14 minutes, but also picked up 3 quick fouls. How would you assess the new Cavaliers players?
Uneven at best. I thought Derrick especially tried to take over the offense a little bit too much. He had a lot of kind of uncontrolled drives to the rim. We know he has issues on defense. Dwayne Wade, kind of similar. He had a couple blocks. It was nice. He had a little bit of effort on defense. There are also times where he thinks the team's going to get a steal, and then he's out of the defensive frame for the next 8 seconds. So you're going to have issues like that. I think, Robin and I talked about this a little bit. They shouldn't really play Rose and Wade together. They kind of got to break up their additions a little bit.
Yeah, those two guys to me don't fit at all. That's not their long-term plan, clearly, with Isaiah Thomas, but why waste time with it now? It messes up the spacing. Wade, I think, can be valuable because you can switch with him. He knows how to backdoor cut for LeBron there. He had a couple big blocks down the stretch of the game. And what Crowder provides, I think, most importantly is, at this phase in his career, LeBron is best defensively as a roamer, and Crowder allows that to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Crowder's value is not going to be in the stat sheet every night. I thought he played really well. He was a big plus for the Cavs last night. He allows LeBron to rest on defense, which is huge. He's going to guard, in that game, he's going to guard Gordon Hayward all night if he had been healthy. So that's where his value lies. I'm kind of with Robin. The Cavs eventually went to a quote-unquote no point guard lineup. They brought in J.R. Smith for Derrick Rose. I thought that was maybe their best 5-man unit of the night.
And it came down to Kyrie shooting over LeBron, which was kind of great. And they remembered their handshake right afterwards. But it stands out. It's a duh point. But the difference between these teams remains LeBron. I like the Celtics roster overall better, but he just impacts the game in every single facet. 29 points, 16 boards, 9 assists, ho-hum last night.
It's crazy. I mean, the last time we saw LeBron averaging a finals in the triple-double, or averaging a triple-double in the finals, and here he is, right back there. It's just crazy. His consistency is just something that we take for granted.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they remember the handshake. That's muscle memory. Yeah. They've been teammates for a long time. That's stuff you never forget. I could see my high school friends today and do the handshake.
What about just a basic pound right now? We got it?
Yeah. Okay. 101. All right, let's talk about what we saw in Golden State last night. Of course, the Warriors get the rings. The Rockets get the W, and it was close, though. Kevin Durant thought he had the game-winning shot. The buzzer turns off. It turns out it went off a little bit too late. Are you overreacting to this Warriors loss, or is it just a fluke?
It's mostly a fluke. I mean, we saw the same thing last year, right? Opening night, the Spurs have this huge win, and you get all these, NBA writers last night saying, "Oh, what happened to your little stories about the Warriors being unbeatable?" It's like, hey, come on. We saw this last year. They lost one game in the playoffs. No Draymond in the fourth quarter. No Iguodala all night. I want the Rockets to be great. I want there to be competition, but I'm not buying it after last night.
The Rockets have a sick team, and it stood out to me how much better the Warriors looked early in the game. And my takeaway is that it's been this, but it especially was illuminated last night. The two guys the Warriors can't afford to lose are Steph Curry and Draymond Green. I actually think they could make way without Durant or anybody else on that roster, but when one of those two guys go down, they become mortal.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Robin. I mean, Steph's shooting ability changes it's changed the league, right? I mean, the way he schemes certain guys out of the NBA, his shooting makes everything go. And then beyond that, Draymond, what he does for that death lineup, defending every position. You saw the Rockets, Eric Gordon having a free lane to the rim. You can't do that when Draymond's in the game. So I'm with Robin there. Steph and Draymond are completely irreplaceable. What stood out to me last night was if the Warriors weren't in the NBA, we could be looking at the greatest regular season of all time. But
if and only if. Yeah. Well, let's look a little bit closer into some of the early numbers with the Rockets, because this was one of the biggest storylines heading into the season. How will Chris Paul and James Harden do? Well, if you're looking at plus minuses with Chris Paul on the bench for the last 4:47 of the game with lingering soreness in his D, although he was on his feet cheering for his teammates the whole time, but that's a conversation for another day. We're talking about plus minus here with the Rockets. They were minus 13 with both Paul and Harden on the floor. They were 0 with Paul and no Harden. And they were plus 14 with Harden and no Paul. Obviously, I mentioned that Paul missed a lot of the game at the end because of the knee soreness, but what are you reading out of those numbers?
Well, I mean, in terms of Harden and Paul sharing the court and being a minus, I mean, a lot of those minutes came at the top of the game, right, when the Warriors were fully healthy. So, plus minus can be a little bit tricky sometimes, individual game. I think Chris Paul didn't play great. I mean, it's tough to spin, his performance as something great. He did help get Steph in foul trouble. To me, the biggest thing I noticed was just sometimes in those kind of semi-transition opportunities, whereas last year's Rockets would be go, 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 shoot the three right away. There were a couple times where maybe Paul was a slight bit more hesitant, and I think he'll learn to kind of work out of that as the season goes along.
Yeah, I'm going to take this another way. You mentioned Gordon. I think he and Tucker are great players for the Rockets and what they're doing. But Chris Paul, in his career, up until last night, 0-130 in games where he was minus 10 or more. So I think what it shows you is he's finally on a team where they're not relying solely on Chris Paul. And once he figures out his dynamic within the offense, he's always bringing that competitive spirit, and he's always bringing, some feistiness defensively.
Absolutely. I'm certainly not down on the Rockets after last night anyway. I mean, they did win the game after all. I do think Paul and Harden have some stuff to figure out, but the talent is still there, and I think that more likely than not, they'll kind of figure out what to do there.
Now, a team that's not being mentioned in this conversation, nor should they, the Chicago Bulls, had what was described as an altercation yesterday. Nikola Mirotic likely going to have surgery, concussion, and bone breaks in his jaw after he was hit by Bobby Portis. What is going on in Chicago?
First of all, I can't believe it. I mean, I met Bobby Portis at the rookie photo shoot, back when he was a rookie a couple years ago. I never would have thought that he was capable of something like this, obviously.
Everyone has their breaking point, Rohan. Yes. Everyone.
Honestly, what was crazy is, when you hear something like this, obviously your first inclination is to make a lot of jokes on Twitter.
Once you know he's okay.
Yes. But it sounds like Mirotic is in some serious pain and, this very serious injury. It's just so unfortunate. And the Bulls, I mean, what happened to this organization? I mean, this is where Michael Jordan played. I mean, the United Center is one of the best places in the world to watch a basketball game. It's sad what's happening there right now. I hope they can find a way to work this out, but I don't know how you can't suspend Portis for a long period of time for something like that.
He's supposed to have a call with the NBA today. I guess the Bulls were trying to get the early lead in most dysfunctional franchise,
No.
and you have to get a head start on the Knicks.
I was going to say yes, but also it's like, what happened to this franchise? Michael Jordan was punching Steve Kerr to the tune of another title. Maybe they thought it was going to be something to pump up the team. Just a little Michael Jordan reincarnated. I don't think Michael Jordan ever broke Steve Kerr's jaw, though.
And I don't think he's ever been mentioned with Bobby Portis before.
Wouldn't it be funny, though, if Portis goes on to lead them 2 times? Now, it's not going to happen. Rohan Nadkarni, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Justin Turner hit a walk-off homer to break a 1-1 tie, and in the process put the Cubs in a 2-0 hole against the Dodgers. Both the Cubs and the Yankees now trail their respective series 2-0. Which team, Maggie, has a better chance of coming back?
Neither. No, I have to pick one. I'm probably going to say the Chicago Cubs.
I'm with you on Chicago. The Astros don't make mistakes, and I think for the Yankees, it's a little unfair to ask CC Sabathia to save their season again at this point. So I think the Cubs have a much better chance to come back than the Yankees do against the Astros.
Yikes. Good thing we are not a very proud bunch. We can admit when we're wrong.
I was extra wrong. I went with the CC Sabathia angle, and he was great.
He has been great. He basically saved the season, and then a big Yankee comeback on Tuesday night. So they've tied up their series. Meanwhile, the Cubs are the ones who are facing elimination. Tonight, Robin, Yankee killer Dallas Keuchel faces Masahiro Tanaka. So let's get ready for some more bad takes. Can the Yankees finish off the comeback here and win the series?
I might as well go all in so we can do this again if they come back and win. I still think the Astros take the series. You just referenced it. They have their best pitchers going. I expect them to get their bats going a little bit against Tanaka. And dare I say it, Sabathia, if he's back on the mound again. So I still like Houston in this series, but it bodes very, very well for the Yankees going forward. I mean, it was Sanchez and Judge were instrumental in getting this series back where it is.
I'm also going to double down. I think the Astros are going to come back and finish and win this series. I think the Yankees are so good at Yankee Stadium that if this goes back, and we'll go back to Houston, that so much favors the Astros, and just the Yankees could not hit the ball in Houston. When you look at Dallas Keuchel, and he's going to be on the mound tonight, Wednesday night, I mean, his numbers against the Yankees are just, they're silly. He's got a 0 career postseason ERA against the Yankees. He's allowed no homers in 57 2/3 career innings, including the postseason. 45 Yankees have come to the plate against Keuchel this year. None, I repeat, none have driven in a run. The only run was scored on an Ellsbury's catcher's interference. I mean, you need weird stuff to happen, in other words, to even get a leg up on Dallas Keuchel. I think that the Astros are going to be able to win again on Wednesday and then finish this off.
The other half of our wrong prediction from before. What happened to the Cubs?
Yeah, great question. I mean, a couple things. Number one, the Dodgers are looking like that early season team that is just absolutely unbeatable. I mean, when you have Jock Peterson and you have Andre Ethier, who have not even taken postseason at-bats yet this year, they come in a Game 3 and they're making the difference. It's like the roster is just so stacked that I don't know if anyone can hang with them right now. Let's also talk about the bullpens. I mean, for the Dodgers, they've been fantastic. They have only allowed a 1.21 ERA over 22 1/3 innings in the postseason. They've struck out 23 batters and walked 2. Meanwhile, Cubs pen 6.35 ERA and 28 1/3 postseason innings. I mean, listen, when you get into the bullpens, that's really where the difference is.
See, you shouldn't be embarrassed. Everybody, that baseball knowledge right there. There it was. Meanwhile, following a meeting with NFL owners and players concerning social issues Tuesday, Roger Goodell said the league did not ask for any changes to its national anthem policy and called the discussions very productive. Meanwhile, Eagles safety Malcolm Jenkins indicated Colin Kaepernick was invited but did not attend. Kaepernick's lawyer, Mark Garagos, said, quote, Colin Kaepernick was not invited to attend today's meeting by any official from the NFL or any team executives. Other players wanted him present and have asked that he attend the next meeting with the goal of forging a lasting and faithful consensus around these issues. Mr. Kaepernick is open to future participation on these important discussions, end quote. Can we really expect Cap to be invited or attend given the current situation between he and the league?
Yeah, he's filed a grievance, a collusion grievance against them. So, no, I can imagine they probably don't want him at the meetings or in the building. But I think that Cap's presence is very much in these meetings, even if physically he's not there. Eric Reed, who was his teammate in San Francisco and has also taken a knee alongside Kaepernick basically since he started this protest in 2016, wore an I'm with Cap t-shirt to this meeting. He also said to our own Jenny Vrentis, he said, I did bring up Kaepernick in the meeting and how this all started with him, and we need to get the messaging straight surrounding him. Reed said, quote, they heard me and they agreed, they being the owners and the league. So even if Kaepernick is not here, I think his presence is here, and I think this is initial conversations. I think there's a long way to go.
Yeah, the shadow of Colin Kaepernick's kneeling is over this topic completely, no matter how you talk about it. And these discussions would not be happening, quite frankly, if it wasn't for Colin Kaepernick, I don't believe. Still, at the same time, it seems that that relationship is contentious. So it's hard to believe Colin Kaepernick would want to walk into a situation where he thinks he's being blackballed by the league. And if he is, in fact, being blackballed by the league, why would the league invite Colin Kaepernick? Maybe, just maybe, if we're really wishful thinking here, this could be the impetus to repairing said relationship.
Perhaps. We're not so sure. Meanwhile, the Bucks will host the Celtics tonight. We know that Boston will be without their brand new star, Gordon Hayward, of course, after suffering that terrible injury on Tuesday night. He reportedly has undergone surgery on Wednesday on his fractured tibia and dislocated ankle. Of course, one person who knows about the long road back from injury is Milwaukee's Jabari Parker, who has injured his ACL twice in the last 3 seasons. Watch this.
Croissant with eggs, some cheese, oatmeal, and I'll put it on foil, and he heads out. Very rare does he sit down and eat here. I think it's because it's always the time. Gotta go. I feel that food is showing our love and affection for someone. So even though he's older and I don't get all the hugs and kisses and and I don't get to pinch his cheek and all of that, I get to still show him love, through what I cook. You want breakfast real quick?
I usually watch YouTube a lot. I just watch other guys' highlights, other pass. I like watching his stuff in the morning too because it helps my reaction time. I'm not as athletic right now, so when I watch him or other guys in the past, it gives me a little bit of motivation. It's something like a old thing that I used to do, even when I was a kid. Used to watch and try to practice the stuff that I watched on TV, like Kobe and stuff. So it's in the same boat.
With the second pick in the 2014 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Jabari Parker from Duke University.
Again, Parker, hard to the rim, right-hand flush. A flush by Parker. Parker scores in the paint.
Rookie forward Jabari Parker has a torn ACL and will miss the rest of the season. Parker was part of a promising young core and ranked second among rookies in scoring.
Jabari Parker out for season after tearing left ACL for second time.
Awful news, yeah. Jabari was having such a fantastic season. First off, this is bad for him and his family and friends because it's going to knock him out for another 12 months. And then on the basketball side, the Bucks need him badly.
My first rehab was by myself a lot. I got a place where we used to play practice at, but lately I've been staying here the last 2 months, 3 months. Been staying with my mom, and it's been going better for me. I haven't been so bored. I'm not lonely a lot of times, and that kind of helps through the rehab too. But now I get to focus on me and all the things that make me happy. And it's been good so far. What's my nephew? His name is Shabazz. So Chris gave me the blessing of name, his first child, and I named him after my idol, Malcolm X. So This is him. So as he gets older, he'll find out what his name means. Well, guys, Biggie Smalls, Andrew Smalls. He does my soft tissue rehab, correct? And my physical rehab too. Trying to relieve some muscle pain so that I can have a good response and then I can make my movement more efficient so I don't overcompensate in areas that are sore. I can use my overall muscles. And this is the cheat sheet. This is how I've been able to get so well. It's definitely a routine. I've been doing the same thing for 8 months so far. And anybody that you ask, my trainer, I stay on here about 3 hours and a half on average because I understand what it takes to get better and to get right the next day. I see beauty in my scars. They tell my story. And when I'm able to uplift myself from those positions, then I'm always gonna backtrack and remind myself the grit, the pain, the disappointment that it's gonna take to become successful one day. So I'm glad that I can have these scars on my legs because they're gonna remind me, because I don't have tattoos, you know. It's trying to teach me that it can be taken in an instant, so you have to learn very quickly, very sharply for prevention, and also so you won't backtrack like I've been doing for the past 2 years. Physically, that is. Mentally, I've been growing in ways that I can't imagine. This is my crew.
It's the crew right here.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, Jabari.
How y'all doing? As you walk one by one, just choose whichever texture you want. So it's some that has a light material and some is like cotton. It's important for me to come back and to give back because as a kid, I wish I would have had the same thing. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to be with the Jordan brand and to give you guys some dope bags for school. And if you guys open them, you guys can open them now. All right, now you guys are a step closer to achieving one of your goals. And one of your goals in school is to have good grades, okay? Anything that you do in life, you want to do it 110%. And the 10% extra is necessary, okay? So a lot of y'all want to be in the NBA, a teacher, a firefighter, a lawyer, whatever. You can't accomplish those dreams if you don't go to school, if you don't be knowledgeable, if you don't learn every day and be smart. So guys, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'm glad that I'm able to be here with you guys today. So next thing is if you guys want a picture with me, you guys can line up by your groups and we can take pictures. But before that, if you guys have a question for me that y'all like to ask, it can be anything.
Who's your favorite basketball player?
My favorite basketball player? I like Magic Johnson. Everybody know Magic Johnson? Yeah, I don't know Magic Johnson.
Do you think your rating in 2K should be higher or lower? It's an 83.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine?
Because that ain't real life. I know my rating in real life. Okay, you right there.
Do you have something that you wanted to before you did basketball?
Okay, so he asked me what did I want to do before I played basketball. And one thing is I wanted to work in a zoo. Like, I love animals, so that's what I wanted to do. If you guys answer this question for me, then since you guys love pizza so much, I'll get you some pizza, okay? But you gotta get it right. Who invented the light bulb? You in the pink. Thomas Edison. Okay, all right. Order like 20 pieces. Is that enough?
As to pursuing your goal, what were like the obstacles you faced and how did you like overcome them?
Well, let's keep it simple, all right? I have an obstacle to wake up every morning, right? Everybody wants to get more sleep, but every day I have to tell myself, if I want to move closer to my dreams and my goals, I got to get up, I got to tell myself I can do something, and I got to accomplish it. And by the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I ask myself, did I accomplish those goals? So it's always day by day. You guys, you guys have big dreams, but if you can shorten those dreams into your day by day, you become closer each and every time. Bye, make sure y'all get some pizza too. Good job, good job.
Jabari.
Uh-huh.
My daughter says you're gonna get us a championship.
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's my man.
Story that is. Meanwhile, Gordon Hayward's immediate future definitely in jeopardy. Early reports say the Celtics forward is undergoing surgery on Wednesday for a broken tibia and dislocated ankle. Dr. Armin Tehrani, founder of Manhattan Orthopedic Care, joins us now. We're going to talk a little about Hayward's injury. This didn't look like a clean break. This looked very gruesome. His foot basically facing the wrong direction. From your point of view, Dr. Tehrani, what do you think happened?
I think he's very unfortunate in the sense that when he landed, it led to a twist, and that led to a deformity. So instead of the ankle being straight like this, what I saw from the video, and all I saw was the video, the ankle then became deformed kind of like that. So it looks like the ankle fracture dislocation that he mentioned, involving probably the tibia and the fibula.
Oh man, so what does this surgery entail? Or, I mean, what can they attempt to do? What can doctors attempt to do today?
Well, first I have to qualify by saying all I saw was the video. I haven't seen the patient, so I have no idea the level of skin damage that the patient has. But in a case like this, if it is in fact an ankle fracture dislocation, the best way to proceed is to try to reduce that fracture dislocation. So take the fact that the ankle's dislocated and make it undislocated. Put it back where it kind of belongs first. That'll stabilize the ankle, that'll decrease the swelling, that'll help the patient. And then after that, it's going to be important to try to stabilize the bones and do the surgery.
Now, sometimes these sort of injuries can look worse than they actually are. The last one I remember eliciting this sort of reaction in basketball was Paul George. If there's no ligament damage, no nerve damage, is there a possibility this is not as bad as it looked?
From what I saw, which was just a short video, I'd be very surprised if there's no ligament damage because of the fact that the way in which you injure your ankle when it dislocates, you kind of have to rip some ligaments in order for that to happen. So, but that doesn't mean that his result won't be fantastic if they're lucky and all goes well. And we just need more details, and we have to just wait and see.
What would be a recovery time on something this significant?
You know, like I said, I don't know any of the details of how bad the situation is, but if it is an ankle fracture dislocation, which can normally be treated with a plate and screws on the outside, screws on the inside, you'd be looking at a few months before he's back in action. And I think that the most important thing we have to think about is first making sure that he goes through the surgery well, there's no infection afterwards, he doesn't get stiff, and if all that goes well, then we can worry and focus more on him getting back into being an athlete.
I mean, specifically for a basketball player, where is this going to affect him the most? Is it the jumping? Is it the lateral movement?
Yeah, it can definitely affect all of those things. So the key is to try to make sure that the bones heal properly and solidly. The angle at which the bones heal has to be perfect. And so, it makes it more difficult in that sense, because if you're off by a millimeter in terms of how things heal and the angles in which they heal, it can put a lot of stress on the ankle for future arthritis.
Would you expect him to make a full recovery?
Other guys have done it. They've been able to get back on the field with surgery for ankle fracture dislocations. I think it's a little too early to tell. We have to see how the surgery goes first.
And would there be any possibility he could return this season?
Oh, this season, you know, I'd hedge my bets.
Of course, like we were asking you to sort of take us behind the curtain here. We see him getting wheeled off the court in a stretcher. He's in clear pain. What are doctors doing for him immediately after he is wheeled off the court?
You know, I'm sure they're trying to make him comfortable. They're trying to make him feel that he's going to be all right, emotionally first. And then after that, try to see how quickly they can get him to an area that's safe in order to be able to put the dislocated ankle back into position. So more important right now than operating on the fracture is getting the dislocation back in the right position. That's not always possible, by the way. Sometimes ligaments can get stuck in between the space where the bones are supposed to go back when it's dislocated. So it's a very serious injury.
We want to ask you about another injury, and obviously Gordon Hayward is the one that takes all the headlines. But there's another very interesting injury, and that is Kawhi Leonard. Very, very different, or so we think. You'll tell us. It's called tendinopathy. Can you describe what that is?
Sure. So the tendon is where the muscle inserts onto the bone. And so what can happen, especially in athletes, especially basketball players, is those tendons can get injured and they can get inflamed. And in a case like Kawhi's, it's from overuse, right? I mean, people are not usually working out as much as he is. And he's extremely explosive, too. So that also lends to the possibility of getting some type of tendonitis or tendinopathy. And this is just a look at the quad, which is, you know, just right in the front of the leg. There are those quad muscles. And at the bottom near the kneecap, that's where he suffers the quad tendonitis.
Now, is there something a doctor can do to repair that, or is that more of you have to be off of it and sort of manage it and rehabilitate it before you get back out there?
So quad tendinopathy rarely needs to have surgery. It's usually something that can be treated conservatively with, you know, rest, ice, compression, elevation, things of that nature, but mostly just ice to help bring the swelling down and rest to help the tendonitis to try to improve on its own. And then there are a lot of other things, including physical therapy, to try to get an NFL athlete back on his feet.
Okay, so, well, Kawhi is the odds-on MVP leader. Obviously, the Spurs are going to need him this season. What does it feel like to play through an injury like this? Because if he can't rest, if Greg Popovich keeps playing him, how's he going to manage that?
So it ends up being an issue where I think most of these players and their teams are aligned in the sense that when they understand what the diagnosis is, such as this, they do the right thing to try to get the player to rest, make sure he feels ready, make sure the physical therapist and the trainers agree. It's really a team effort to make sure that he's ready both physically and emotionally.
So would you say this is a short-term or a long-term thing for Kawhi Leonard here?
You know, I haven't examined him. I don't know the extent of the tendonitis, but he made a good recovery from his tendinopathy on the other side in 2012. So I see no reason for why he shouldn't make a great recovery on this side as well.
You said that you would not treat tendinopathy with a surgery or anything like that. If he has to just play through it and play with it, can it have a ripple effect? I mean, if he's favoring it or compensating, would it affect other parts of his body?
It's possible, but with someone as healthy and fit as Kawhi, with the team that he's got behind him, the types of trainers and doctors that there, I would expect that he'll make a full recovery fairly quickly.
That's fantastic. Armin Tehrani, thank you for answering the questions we would never be able to answer. Of course, founder of Manhattan Orthopedic Care right here in Manhattan. Really appreciate your expertise. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow with you at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always be on SI.com for all the latest news and headlines. And follow us on Twitter, will you? At SI Now Live. We'd be oh so appreciative. See you tomorrow.
My minor in kinesiology only goes so far, Doctor.
I know. I wouldn't have Robin on.